What is std jthread? If I create a thread using traditional std thread that runs this function worker, I have to make sure that I call t.join before t is distracted. If I forget to do this, std terminate will be called and my program will get terminated unexpectedly. Here is another example where I create a thread using std thread. T goes out of scope outside of these curly braces without join being called on t, and this other function do something else will never get called because std terminate will be called and my program gets terminated. In short, std thread must be distracted with either join or detach. Forgetting to do this will result to calling std terminate and your program will exit. Here is one more example where you create a thread using traditional std thread. You have every intention to call t.join, but due to an exception, we exit from this function. T will get distracted without t.join being called. And again, you guessed it right, std terminate will terminate your program. Even if you try to catch the exception outside of this function, your program will get terminated. std jthread tries to fix this very problem. Here is the same example where I create my thread now using std jthread. Notice that I don't need to do explicit t.join because std jthread will call join in the distractor automatically. So I can have peace of mind that std terminate will not be called and my program will work just fine. Jthread also fixes the exception problem. If exception happens, t, which is now a jthread, will get distracted. As a result, t.join will be called. And even if we exit from this function due to an exception, std terminate will not be called, assuming that we catch the exception outside. The fact that std jthread calls join in its distractor follows a pattern in C++ called RAII. Resource acquisition is initialization. But this is not all that std jthread provides. There's another really cool feature that std jthread provides, which is called stop token. Remember that in C++, one thread cannot forcefully make another thread stop. In order to stop a thread, there needs to be some cooperation between these two threads. One way to do cooperative stop between two threads using traditional std thread is to use an atomic variable like this, which the worker thread reads and the launcher thread modifies. There are various problems with this pattern. One of them is that you have to manage the lifetime of this variable manually, and jthread solves this problem. Here's the same example using jthread. Notice that I create my worker thread without passing any parameter to it. However, my worker automatically receives a parameter called stop token. This is provided by jthread. So now, instead of monitoring an atomic variable, I'm monitoring this stop token. And the launcher thread can call stop request to signal that the work is done and the worker thread should stop. If you want to know more about jthread, make sure to watch my full video, which also talks about another cool feature of jthread called stop callback. Thank you and see you next time.